Well, welcome everybody. This is the final hub webinar. Our system is moving to learning centers. So as we put out webinars in the future, it'll be learning center webinars. But we're closing a chapter on the hub name, and really grateful to our speaker, Janet, for joining us today as our speaker for our webinar called Ableism in the Wellness Industry. A very quick intro because Janet will be chatting more about her story. But Janet's a wellness director, a certified personal trainer, autism fitness specialist, and certified in diverse abilities fitness. She's been with the Y for 7 years and also co-founded one of the first disability ERGs with the YMCA of Central Ohio and YUSA. So has been a really true champion of this work and community in our organization. And we are very lucky to have her on today to speak with us about her story, her perspective in this work. So thank you, Janet. And as our first question, we're going to do a more conversational style today than maybe some folks are used to, but would you help us just frame up our conversation today and then share more about your story? Oh, you're on mute, Janet, and then we'll get going.
There we go. Can you hear me now? Hi. I'm a bit nervous. Can you repeat?
Yes. So just can you help us framing up our conversation today? I know you've got some things here to share with your slides, but also just your story and coming into where you are today.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the introduction. Once again, yes, it is Happy National Cerebral Palsy Awareness Day. So before we get started, I want to thank you for this slide. Continue on with the slides. Talk about a disclaimer really quickly. Certain points in showing my story and our conversation as we continue, it may have triggering topics. If you feel like you need to step away, please do so. I completely understand. And by all means, take your time. And if you have any questions or would like to share anything, we'll have a Q&A at the end. Or once again, you can email me and contact me that way. Putting that out there. My story. All right, so I'm going to go back a little bit and bear with me because this journey will add up as I talk and as I start to share. As you can see, there's a lot of photos here. I started my journey. How many years ago? How old is my child? 17. I moved out here in Columbus, Ohio when my daughter was 3 months old. She's now 17. I was homeless, single mother, and just with the shelter, looking for a job and doing that, learning the bus schedules and walking a ton. Now I have cerebral palsy. If you can go forward again for me so we can define what is CP. Cerebral palsy is not a disease. It's a group of disorders that affects a person's ability to move, maintain balance, and posture. For me, I have spastic dysplasia, so that means from the hip down. We can go back if we can. Dysplasia, so that means my legs and my body, my legs, my muscles are tight from the hip down. What does that mean? How does that feel? Now imagine wearing a tight pair of jeans, right? And you're trying to either run or walk up skinny jeans, right? You're trying to walk up a flight of stairs. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. Now, my body does this automatically all the time. It hurts. I'm in pain. I do experience at times chronic pain. It does happen. And that's how my body moves. I imagine me walking for miles, going to work, because that is new to the area. I had to do this. So one day, as I'm pushing my daughter's stroller and walking, I look down and I'm like, and you sit down and you look, I'm like, I got muscles, I got calves. And when you have tight muscles, it's hard to build, especially when it comes to cerebral palsy. It's hard to build muscle. You gotta really work at it. But I was like, whoa, for the first time. And I was 26 years old. So this got me thinking, I'm like, man, well, if I can do this, if I can build muscle, what if I could run? What if I could run? And that moment, it brought me to the YMCA, Jerry Garver, the YMCA in Columbus, Ohio, or Pickerington. And I remember walking in for the first time. It was new, just walking into the Y first time. I remember feeling out of place. I remember feeling uneasy because my disability is visible. Okay. Knowing that and knowing how people stare and knowing those things, that's my insecurity. But I remember walking in and I remember going through the facility and signing up and the tour. Remember the tour, they kept leaning towards more of like, hey, the water does this, the water classes and swimming lessons and this. And I'm like, great, great. I don't like the water. I want to work out in the weight room. But these were my thoughts, you know. And as they continued, they pointed out the programs and things like that, walking down the hall, and then entering the facility. And that alone was an experience by itself. Just the fitness, the layout, the gym, the equipment. And I remember looking around, and as I continued going, I had a thought. I was like, man, I don't see a lot of people like me. Once again, it's a visible disability. I know there's non-visible disabilities, the disabilities you can't see, diverse abilities. I'll use that term too, because disabilities word itself for me makes me a bit uncomfortable and hard to identify. But anyways, yeah, so I walked in and I started training and working out, and the journey itself was hard. I remember there's a track around the gym. I used to fall a ton. If your muscles are tight and you're learning how to run and moving the muscles, my body took time to adapt. So long story short, it took time to really gain the ability to move and push, and I had to figure out ways to use certain equipment that my body was not responding to. Why? Because the machines that are used are kind of, I guess, atypical or doesn't include everyone. This is something we're talking about. All right, it's called Ableism. We'll get into those definitions in a minute. But yeah, so I learned how to work out, and next thing you know, I started to move. And with the members' help, there's a picture on there as a member, support, they used to pick me up every time I fell, but not to quit, even though I wanted to, even though it hurt, even though I felt really different and sometimes out of place when my body doesn't respond. Because there are days when my legs will give out and there's nothing, you know, and having that support and having those people in the community and the why is huge. It's huge. So I was 26 years old, and I remember signing up for my first 5K. And I always get emotional with this because it's the pivotal moment in my life. This is a pivotal moment where everything changed. Okay, 26 years old, I'm learning how to run. And I still had tightness. I still couldn't fully run, but I was going to do it anyway, right? I ran my first 5K called the Color Run. It was by Toyota Mile, Weather Bridge. And I remember running. And I remember trying and extending. My toes are dragging and I'm still going, right? It's only 3.2 miles. But in mid-run, my legs started to loosen up. The tingly from the head down to my toes, my legs started to loosen and I was able to move like just like a runner, like, you know, just feeling it and not feeling anything, any kind of block that makes any sense. I guess the runner's high for the first time. That's what it's called. And at that moment, now I have cerebral palsy. I had to wear braces as a kid. Okay, braces are where it helps align your legs, right? At that moment, as I was running, I remember having a dream as a kid. As a kid, I was in barely learning how to walk, 3, 4, 5 years old, having braces, using mobile devices, going to physical therapy all the time. I remember dreaming of running. I remember the air hitting my face. I remember the grass between my toes. This was a dream when I was 6, 7, 5, 6, 7 years old. I remember it because it was vivid. I remember it because I remember waking up and breathing in such a way where I was running, but I still had my leg braces. At that moment, at 26, when I was running, that dream came back to me. And I was just bawling because I was running for the first time in my life at 26. Never before. Before that, had really ran distance, And it changed my life. And I wanted to become a personal trainer. And from that moment on, I did just that. I went from personal trainer to corporate wellness training site to learning about management to becoming a wellness director at the YMCA, Alden Nelson Ward YMCA of Central Ohio. And everything you see here, I've accomplished thus far without, I experienced stuff within these spectrums too, but I still continue. So that's my why story.
Thank you so much, Janet. I think I've heard your story a few different times in formats now, and it's beautiful and it's new every time I hear it. So I think you really are bringing to life for folks your experience, and everyone's experience with diverse abilities is different, but getting to hear your story and experience, I think, helps encourage us to really find ways to make sure that folks feel welcome at the Y. You're getting love in the chat as well, so thanks again. I know you had a couple of definitions here. Is there anything we didn't cover that you wanted to?
So we're going to use terms such as developmental disabilities as a group of conditions due to an impairment in physical learning, language, and/or behavior area. These conditions begin during the developmental period and may impact day-to-day functioning and usually last throughout a person's lifetime. Next. We go to the next slide, and also ableism. Exactly what is that? Discrimination in favor of able-bodied people. What is able-bodied, fit, strong, healthy, and a non-physical disability? These are terms you may need more processing and help. I wanted to clarify so we can continue on with the conversation.
All right, thank you. I'll pause the share so that we can feel a little more conversational if folks are able to and want to come off or to turn their video on so that we can see the folks that we're chatting with. That would be awesome. Let me pull up. I was way too deep in the story again, and so I need to look back at the questions I've got for you. So you shared your story, but can you share about what access means to you and what that experience of access at the Y has been like, both coming into the Y as a member all those years ago and now even as a personal trainer and in your role?
Okay, sorry, I put a little note card. I was like, I'm gonna explain this off the rip. Now I'm like, I don't need to. Okay, because I don't like keep reading off of stuff, which I do. What is access to me? Access is being included, say you're walking in as a member. walking in general, and any place at the Y, right? You walk in, you feel welcome, you feel seen. And what do I mean when you feel seen? Uh, it could be a variety of things, like you're able to use the equipment uh, independently. Having access means being able to understand directions when someone is explaining something to you. Access means I'm able to go into the group X because I have to stay within my spectrum. It's all wellness, right? So I'm able to go into a group X class and take the class and not feel different or out of place, or just, hey, this is not working for me. I should have access, or have programs specifically to, like, oh, this is something I would like to do. This is something that I want to do. And then just like the feeling of inclusiveness, like you can go in and you're able to use fitness equipment. Why? Because there's space. There's enough space. Things of that nature. I could go on, but yeah, that's what access means to me.
Thanks. And so we talked about your disability, your diverse ability of cerebral palsy, and how that is a visible disability when you came into the Y. I know as we talk about the conversation of ability, there are tons of different ways that this shows up. So what communities tend to get left out of this conversation, especially in the wellness industry?
Yes. So a lot of the times, like within our Ys, we have a lot of like what we call chronic diseases. What is that? We have like stroke, cancer. We have a lot of things that cover this, right? But what's not communities is not, and it's starting to grow now. But we're talking from the moment I became a personal trainer to the work that we're doing now, is development disabilities. Talking, what are examples of that? I can give like Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, autism, neurodivergent, attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, intellectual disabilities, visible, non-visible, people who may identify as whether low vision or impairment, or depending on what terms you identify with, or blind. These topics are not as, or topics, sorry, communities we touched on. And I would love to help bring the light of this and help support and help be more inclusive by tying these in everything we do when it comes to wellness, when it comes to programming, when it comes to group X classes, when it comes to the setup of the fitness floor, when it comes to, training, how we train, uh, things like that.
So you're getting into the next question I had is, what areas, right, does the Y have to improve on our inclusion, on whether that's programs, group exercise, the equipment I know you mentioned in your own story. So what are some areas that we have to improve in at the Y?
Oh, there's a lot, you ready? All right. Let's go specific first, because some communities, members, families, friends may identify and like to see a support of such, have more specific programming, such as it could be geared towards autism fitness classes, group classes where they can have a family up, group classes where they come together and only focus on cerebral palsy PT classes or therapy that needs to be continued, or have a class where it's set up in such a way where, okay, now it covers more explanation, dialogue, sound sensitivity, sound, things like that, to help support, certain um diverse abilities, disabilities. We can go into that. Or as a whole, which I just gave a couple examples of, if you want to be all inclusive, like what are the sensors? Sound, sight, touch, right? There's taste and smell, but make sure you have cleanliness in the facility as a whole. But these are the things we could consider. I could give you examples, right? For all your classes and all your group flex and the fitness your experience within the wellness, within the facility as a whole. How loud is the music? When you have your group X classes, do you have visuals? What terms are you using? When you have your group X classes, that just stands for whoever. Are you showing more than one way? You know what I mean? What else? I want to make sure I ain't forgetting anything because I'm trying to be very specific. That's the word. Some words I can say, some words I can't. But yeah, oh, people who identify with visual or non-visual or blind, right? Tactile. If I need to navigate, right? This community needs to navigate through our facility. How do we go about doing that? Be careful how you keep switching the facility around. What? Spacing, If it's tactile, what can we add? Braille, right? What can you add Braille to? You get to, okay, how can we do this? When it comes to our programming and our classes and equipment, think about the way the body moves. It's not just upper body, lower body. What about people with limb difference or limb loss? Limb difference means you're born. Limb loss means something has occurred. Now a limb is lost. How can they use the equipment? Do you have cardio machines not only for total body, but what about upper body or just lower body? Is there equipment where if someone wants to come in with a mobile device, they will have a easier transition from their mobile device to the piece of equipment they would like to use? This is just a variety of different things we can do to help bridge those pieces and bridge those gaps and make people feel seen, heard, and welcome. And that's huge to me.
Yeah. I think it's easy to forget what a big difference some of those little considerations really make in folks' experiences. And they're easy corners to cut at the Y. And so how can we make sure as leaders, right, that we are taking the time to be so intentional about every experience that we're putting in our community? I did want to ask as well, because, right, you kind of led in your story through becoming a member at the Y and kind of rediscovering some abilities of running and building muscle. I don't know if we got too deep into the fact that you were a bodybuilder, which is extremely cool. And I think we should have, you probably saw on the slide the amazing pictures of Janet in the bodybuilding days, right? But
come here, one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got one more show.
Oh, do you? Coming up? Well,
I'm
you'll
sorry,
have to make sure that we know how we can support you in that, because I know that is an insane effort. So tell us about becoming a personal trainer at the Y. What were your motivations? What did you want to make sure that you were bringing to that role?
Yes. So after that run, I knew I wanted to be a personal trainer because I was like, if I can experience movement in such a way where I haven't before, and I've only dreamed about it, and this is exercise, okay? This is exercise. Might go tangent, please bear with me. Now, people who identify having disabilities, and especially when it comes to physical, and some of the things that they need as an age, children need to have exercise on a regular basis, not just CP. All right. Imagine being someone, and we can go on to a different topic after this. Person of color, right? My mom had 2 or 3 jobs. My dad too, and we had state insurance, a big family. And I remember only having so much access to therapy sessions, or the Medicaid, or what I had at the time. I remember we only have like 20. You can't get no more than that.
Hang on, y'all. I think Janet's frozen. Is that just for me or no? Okay, just a second. All right, we paused the recording, so it's like it never happened for anybody that watches this after. All right, can you hear us all right? Oh, and you're on mute again, but
Yes, I do apologize. Don't know what happened.
we all work for the Y. It's spotty. It's spotty. We know this.
I was like,
Okay. All
okay.
right.
Hi.
You were sharing about growing up, your parents worked 2, 3 jobs, etc. That's where we left off.
Yes, okay. Yes. So now that's what got me into being a personal trainer too. Okay. Now imagine becoming a personal trainer because I wanted to increase access, make sure we had everything we need to continue on in any facility. This is my bigger dream. This is how more work has to be done for this, but this is why I'm doing the work. This is why I'm here, and I'm, you know, but once I became a personal trainer, these are 2 things I was told, right? 2 or 3. One, oh, 2. One, I would never become successful because I have a disability. And if I can't show someone how to do it, you're not going to succeed. 2, because as a personal trainer, you can get a lot of money and make money because you can always, like how you say, you can monetize off of people with disabilities. It's a permanent paycheck. Not okay. Not on my watch. All right. So that's why I'm here, to stop some of this, to increase independence in our facilities, to increase access. What do you need? Whatever you need, I'll try to make it happen so that way you can continue on and not having to give. Why, when it comes to monetizing, see, people with CPs, even diverse abilities, right? Now you're talking like society. It's hard to get a job, right? It's hard to get a job. You're talking, I want to say, I know stats. So why? Because it's in me. It's in me. That's why I'm here. We're talking 40% of people with disabilities live in poverty. 40%. Why? We don't have access to education, jobs, right? Good jobs, jobs that last, not just temporary, jobs that last so we can afford to live. Now imagine being a person that Black or brown. You're talking 70% in poverty. All right. So this is a passion for me to help change this. And it has not been on easy road. No, it has not. Especially the last years, going through, because what people don't know, they don't know. And because of the lack of education and understanding causes harm. Right. So I remember going into facilities saying, hey, I am a certified personal trainer. Well, you can't train until I can see you do A, B, and C, and D. Squat. How to show them how to use the equipment. I had to teach my body to do something it was not able to do, and that hurt, but I did it. Was that okay? No, not okay. I can easily cue verbally and show you how to do it without having to physically show you. We're capable of doing that. But these are the things I experienced. There were times when I wanted to continue on, and there's like, oh no. This is when I was doing corporate wellness, and I was actually manager of a site in a hospital. And I was like, oh, I'm here to be a personal trainer. Oh no, you're gonna clean the machines and just talk to the members. Why? Why? Because what they see is what they assume. They didn't think I was educated enough or had the experience. I was managing at the time. So you see, it is not easy. By any means, hasn't been easy, especially in the beginning. Painful. But you stick it out because you need change. You stick it out because there's people like me that want to do the same thing, and they should not continue experiencing what I experienced. And that's what it is. It hurts, but I rather highlight it, show it, say, hey, it stops here. Let's no more. Let's change it. So that's my experience just being a personal trainer. It is still not an easy road. You talking being a female. We're going intersectionality, right? Female in the fitness industry, but now a female who is Hispanic, now with a disability. It's okay though. It makes you stronger. It makes you more of an overcomer. You're now able to see solutions that people haven't seen because they haven't experienced it. More resilient. At the end of the day, become more as successful because of that. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Janet. I think it's so important to hear for the folks in the room that hire folks that have the ability to look at our policies for what the wellness staff, right, is what types of policies do we have in place, and asking the question of why, like you did, Janet. So I think if anybody on this call has access to those conversations, that's something that we as a movement need to be asking those questions, and really making sure that our facilities are not only inclusive for our members, but also for folks that want to have a career with the Y. I was hoping you might be able to share, so for folks wanting to make change in their Ys in their organization, what are some short-term, like low-hanging fruit that we can all make a difference in within the next few months? What are some short-term solutions? And then I'll also ask, what are some of those bigger dreams that you started talking about, those longer-term things we should be working towards? In whatever order.
Yeah. You can help live a dream, that'd be great. Like I did it. I've learned. Short term. Things I mentioned before. Think about our community. Take a note of the community. See what's around you, not just inside, but what's around you. This is going to help navigate how you can be inclusive. But all in all, be inclusive in general. Because like whatever that movie is, I know I'm old, right? If you build it, they will come. You know that one.
Field of Dreams, I got you. Field of Dreams.
Oh, okay. Anyways, but I get some tips ready. During specific times of the day, every gym has it, hopefully, maybe. If you're not, that's okay. When you're not as busy or it's not as a lot of people. Think about the music. When it comes to sound sensitivity, maybe lowering the music a few decibels, maybe having that time and market it. Say, hey, this time and this time, we, we have sound sensitivity hours where the music is lower and there's not a lot of people. These situations can be very overstimulating at times. When it comes to equipment, say if I'm going into a facility straight out the gate, this what gets me. This is my pet peeve, right? Is the floor flat? Is it clear of anything that may be a tripping hazard? Please, even the ridges on rugs. So a person who may have a hard time moving or lifting their legs, right? That can be a tripping hazard. You may not think about it, but it could be. So make sure everything's kind of cleared out the way. Spacing. If you know certain equipment, say certain mobile devices, it all depends because there's a variety, right? And you can look in policy to see ADA compliant. Make sure all your equipments kind of have their same spacing. We should be able to navigate, through our facility and the fitness floor in such a way where they'll have access, anybody will have access to the equipment they would like to use. Never assume what they can and cannot do. There are like plenty of people that come in using a mobile device where it's seated and they can still get up and, use the equipment. All right. So just never assume. And also and I can give you a list, like we can talk about it after. I can help you with the equipment list because I put that together too. I've been working on this since 2019. There's adaptive attachments. So people who may identify having a limb loss or born, limb difference, they can still use the equipment. We have the stuff the stuff's out there to use. It's there. And also, these are just a couple of things. Any sign that you make, think about the size of text, adding braille. Make sure we have good visuals. This will help with processing. A lot of the terms we use, like, oh, this and that, we already, sometimes bigger terms, I'm sitting here like, you don't know how people learn. Add visuals, add video. It's vast, and it's so great to come in and be able, because at times too, when I was on the fitness floor and I'm trying to figure out how to use stuff and understand people's words, because it takes time for me to process too, right? I don't understand. I need videos and pictures and simple terms. Simplify. So those are small things you can do.
All right, I tried to type up that list and I just dropped it in the chat for folks that needed something to copy and paste and talk about with your teams. So those are a lot of things that we can start working on now. When you think about the future of, what the Y looks like when it is totally inclusive, what are the big things that we need to tackle in your opinion and perspective?
So I'm gonna stay away from like policy, well, hey, my spectrum. Okay, and facilities, the building as a whole. Big picture. Okay, let's talk about equipment. Next time you invest or you're thinking, broad spectrum, don't forget those equipment that everyone can use. Keep that in mind. And when I mean everyone, think about all the abilities we talked about, all the diverse abilities we talked about. Make sure that's inclusive. That's a huge investment. Big picture, the building. Say if you're going to open up, think about the access points. Think about, perfect person, parking using a mobile device. Make sure there's clearance. Make sure there's areas where they're able to, there's enough space. What else? And one thing I want to, big picture, right? We have all of our programs accessible, which includes, I guess, make sure everyone has that education. I think education is probably key. The more you know, the more you can understand. The more you can understand, the more you're like, oh, well, I can do this and this and this. On all types of diverse abilities. have education on that. Why? Because next time you teach a group X class, or next time the personal trainer, they'll know how to navigate. They already know. When you come in, already ready for you. Can you imagine that? Wow.
Right.
That's, yeah,
I love that idea of us already being ready before we meet and care for somebody that doesn't see our space as accessible for them.
Yeah.
We did have a couple questions in our chat space here. One, fitness companies that you might recommend. Do you have any recommendations on, you know, the people that make the adaptive equipment? Anybody we should be looking into?
I do, and I have a list, and I should have it out. I can send it out. I don't remember all the names, but I can certainly attach a few, and then maybe another email can go out with any other resources.
I will definitely send that out to the folks on this call and anybody that registered. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
It's an ever-growing, vast. There's a lot of stuff that's still not there, and so it's
Awesome.
ever-growing for sure.
Awesome. We had another question. How are we advertising and sharing with our community that our facilities are accessible to all people? And are there programs for children with disabilities? I don't know if that was more of a rhetorical, just add to the conversation question, or if you have any thoughts on that, Janet, that you wanted to share.
What was it again? Sorry.
Yeah. How are we advertising and sharing with our community that our facilities are accessible to all people? And then programs for children with disabilities, diverse abilities.
Yes. So one, advertising marketing, the way I know, like YMCA of Central Ohio, we market inside, we do flyers, we go to communities, we go to we have our connections like Nationwide Children's Hospital, things like that. We have that. We have social media. We do TikTok. That's new.
New and maybe over soon. We'll never know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But like we just started it too. But that's how we market. And because I remember having a question or two for someone. They were like, oh, well, we don't have that community. I said, yes, we have to market. We have to build first in order to have that community, because the community is there. And for programming, there's trainings out there. I took the autism fitness class. I am a specialist in that one. So there are trainings. Once you're trained and once you gain that education, and then whether it's from trainings, spirit experience, that's another thing. Make sure there's proper representation too. You're able to put together programs, okay, for specific and for all as well.
Thank
I have
you.
a question. I was the one who put the question in there. I'm Adriana Bridges, but I was just wondering, because I have a background with working with children at Franklin County Board of DD. And I know when I first started, there was a program that Cassie had at the North YMCA for children that had disabilities. It was like a program they did weekly. And I know a lot of times when I had reached out to some of my families that were at my old building, they were just saying that the locations, like, it was kind of far. Maybe it wasn't their side of town. It was a little bit later. And I was just wondering, like, one, is that going to happen again? And this might not be a question, Janet, that you're able to answer, but, and like, how can we make it to where there will be like different locations, if that makes sense?
It's more like training, getting the staff trained to do the classes. That's important. Let's say we actually have the swimming classes too. That just started, and I know the training is going there as well. So it's pretty much having people trained, well equipped, and then ready to roll as soon as you get started or whatever. But yeah. Does that help? Was I clear a little bit? And if you want it, say if you want it at your site, then that's something. Okay, look at hiring, look at what's there, look who is available, what's needed. And go from there.
Did anybody else have questions that you want to come off mute or drop in the chat and I can lift those up? Janet, is there anything else that we did not touch on that you want this group to make sure that they're taking away with them today?
Thank you for being here. Takeaway. I think first and foremost, as we continue on with this journey, and I'm going to say thank you to you, Ellie. Listen. Provide time to listen and share your story, because within that there's healing. And then after today, like I do experience, I feel like I have more healing now because there's so much pain that we go through. So if anything, listen to your members. That's what you're gonna find, what they want, and just share their, hearing their stories. Sometimes being heard is a part of the healing process and giving the space to talk. And it just takes one step at a time,
Yeah.
to do this. It is not hard. Get the right people in the room.
It's a great closing thoughts, takeaways. Janet, thank you so much for the vulnerability of sharing your story with this group, making yourself available as a resource in our movement to help us be more inclusive to people of all abilities. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you do want to drop your email in the chat,
Oh, yeah.
I would encourage everybody, if you make some type of change following up on this webinar, to email that story to Janet. I think so often we have people share stories and the work that they're doing, and they don't get to always see the fruits of that labor. So if you all could save Janet's email, and I'd challenge you to pick one thing from the list of things that Janet shared with us to try to have that conversation about making that change at your Y, and email Janet with the results of that. I think that would be a welcome email in her inbox, I would assume. Okay, it's in the chat now. janet.torres@ymcacolumbus.org. Janet, thank you. If we could get, love in the chat or your emoji reactions or whatever from anybody on the call. I'll stop the recording if anybody wants to stay on and ask questions, but thanks, Janet.
Yeah, thank you.